In this video, I'll show you everything you need to do to learn to speak a language fluently. And then I'll give you a step-by-step plan you can follow to get fluent in 3 months or less. I'm Mikkel Hyperpolyglot. I speak 12 languages, and I developed a fast and efficient language learning system in the Innovation Center of the University of Deusto. I've helped thousands of people learn languages fast, tens of thousands. And unlike other language YouTubers who talk about language learning all day, but only in English, I make lots of videos in lots of languages all the time. So I know what I'm talking about. And let me tell you this. You don't get fluent in a language by studying grammar. You get fluent by saying thousands of sentences out loud until your mouth does the work without your brain having to think about it. That's the whole secret, and almost nobody does it because it feels too simple to be real. So they keep grinding through apps and courses that teach rules and do thousands of hours of comprehensible input. They do all of that instead of building reflexes, and they stay stuck. Picture this. 3 months from now, you'll be in a real conversation with native speakers, and you'll be speaking fluently and confidently, and you'll be enjoying it. The sentences just come out automatically. You're not translating in your head, you're not searching for the grammar rules, you're not trying to remember vocab. It just works. And this is simply because you've learned enough sentences that are actually useful. Here's the mechanic. Instead of learning a grammar rule and trying to build sentences using it, you drill sentences over and over again with small variations until you learn the pattern and you can use it automatically. You don't need to study how the verbs conjugate. You drill the sentences often enough and you'll be able to use them. You don't need to study tenses. You simply learn sentences. This is how you learned your native language in the first place. You listened to the language a lot and you repeated these sentences you were hearing a lot until you got them right. Nobody gave you a grammar textbook before you could talk. Your brain doesn't retrieve grammar as abstract rules in real time. It retrieves pre-built patterns. And repetition is what builds these patterns directly. One sentence teaches you one sentence, but a pattern drilled through 15 or 20 variations teaches you the entire structure, plus a pile of extra vocabulary as well. So you walk away able to produce sentences you've never specifically memorized because you internalized the shape of the sentences, not just the content. This is what most language learners skip. You know the theory, you can rack up lots of hours of listening or watching videos, but when it's time to actually speak, you need automaticity. And automaticity only comes from repetition, practice, drills. And the easiest way to start doing this, go download HyperLingua from the link in the description and start listening and repeating sentences. Listen and repeat 1,000 sentences every day for a month. That alone will do a lot more for your speaking fluency than thousands of hours of so-called comprehensible input. And you can also create your own materials. You take a sentence you already know, something like, I need to finish this by Friday. You say it out loud and then you substitute one word. I want to finish this by Friday. I tried to finish this by Friday. I forgot to finish this by Friday, etc. And then you change another word. She needs to finish this by Friday. Or you turn it into a question. Do you need to finish this by Friday? Or you swap the deadline. By tonight, by next week, by the end of the month. And then you start making the sentence longer and more complex. I don't think I'll finish this by Friday. I'm not sure I can finish this by Friday anymore. I already told them I'd finish this by Friday. The combinations are endless. And the more reps you do, the easier it will get. Do as many reps as possible every day and always out loud. That's what builds muscle memory. And this is also the perfect way to start building your language islands, the second piece of the system. A language island is a self-contained block of language, a paragraph or a monologue, built around one real topic from your life. Your job, your hobbies, your hometown, why you're learning the language, whatever you normally talk about. You prepare a small paragraph using your speaking voice, the way you'd say it in real life. You translate it into the language that you're learning and you drill it over and over again, repeating the sentences out loud until you know them by heart and you can say them automatically. This will give you a set of useful sentences and entire paragraphs that you can use whenever you need them. And if you prepare enough of them for all the usual topics you talk about and the situations you find yourself in, you'll be pretty much fluent. This is the fastest way to learn to speak a language. And there are three main reasons for this. First, because your brain doesn't store language as isolated words. You learn chunks, phrases, whole sentences, entire paragraphs, instead of isolated words and grammar that then you have to put together. So learning a sentence as one block trains you to retrieve that sentence, but also similar sentences, fluently, the way native speakers do it, instead of having to construct sentences on the fly. Also, this uses active recall, the effort of retrieving something from memory. Especially if you're getting it wrong and then getting instant feedback, this builds far stronger memory than passive reviewing. And of course, this is also very output focused. You say everything out loud, and your mouth gets used to speaking the language, you build muscle memory, and you get used to speaking the language. So when you're face to face with native speakers, it's not that hard anymore because you've been doing it a lot already. Basically, you're learning to speak a language the way an actor prepares for the role, the way an actor learns their lines. You have to memorize the actual lines. You have to rehearse them until delivery is automatic. Because speaking a language is a performance, and the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. It's as simple as that. So here's the whole process. It's the same steps every time. You pick a topic from your actual life. You talk about it out loud in your native language first, the way you'd actually talk to someone. You record it with AI, and you translate the full block into one connected paragraph, not sentence by sentence. Then you create a text-to-speech audio file out of it. And now you've got your own words in the target language with audio. And now you can start reading them, listening to them, reading them aloud, and, of course, shadowing them over and over again until you know them by heart. This also means doing active recall. Try to say the whole thing from memory, make lots of mistakes, check the feedback, try again. And you will struggle, but this is the point. Making lots of mistakes and getting instant feedback every time is one of the best ways to learn anything. It's hard work, it's frustrating, it can be exhausting, but you have to keep doing it if you want results. And eventually you'll be able to speak fluently, using all those useful sentences and paragraphs that you memorized, fluently and confidently. Of course, you'll need to prepare a lot of these paragraphs, so you need to start building them. I'd recommend doing it in this order. First yourself, then your work, the language itself and why you're learning it, where you're from, where you live, why you're there if you're traveling, places you've been to, also talking about the country of the native speakers you are going to talk to, and of course learn to talk about things that you're interested in, your hobbies, and also learn some stories to tell. The stories you usually tell, you should be able to talk about them in the target language. So you prepare lots of small paragraphs for all those topics, and you learn them by heart, and you'll be able to have real conversations in no time. Because these topics I just listed cover 95 to 99% of the things you normally talk about. And once you learn enough of them, they'll start overlapping and connecting into each other, and it will stop feeling like recitation and it will start feeling like real fluency. You'll be able to play around with them, combine them. Now let's talk a little bit more about active recall, because this deserves its own explanation, because it's the technique that actually determines where you can speak the language, not just understand it. Active recall forces your brain to produce sentences or entire paragraphs from memory, out loud. This is what makes the difference, because input alone doesn't work. It works for comprehension, but not for speaking. Listening is recognition. Reading is also recognition. Watching videos is, again, only comprehension. Even shadowing is, yes, it's output, it's repetition, but you're not thinking in the language. Active recall, on the other hand, forces you to produce language from scratch. It's basically the most effective way to learn anything. Active recall is backed by one of the most replicated findings in memory research. It's often called the testing effect. Retrieving information strengthens memory far more than reviewing it. One round of active recall is roughly worth 5 to 10 passive reviews of the same sentence. But active recall is genuinely hard. It's very difficult. So first, I recommend listening to the sentences while having the text and the meaning in front of you, so you know what you're listening to, you understand it. Then you try listening to it without the meaning in front of you, and if you still understand it, then you can move on to passively listening to them in the background to review them. You can listen to them while commuting, while driving, working out, going for runs, things like that, and very easily do spaced repetition this way, without lots of flashcards. And only then, once you understand them easily, you do active recall. I mean, you can start earlier if you want to, but it's going to be very hard. So this way, combining massive amounts of reviewing through listening with the active recall, it's going to be much easier. And after enough repetitive exposure through time and active recall, you'll be able to use all those sentences actively in real conversations. And like I said earlier, really important, always full sentences. Never isolated words. Always say it out loud every time. Thinking it silently doesn't train production. Again, be ready to make lots of mistakes. It's fine, you learn from your mistakes. Just pay attention to the feedback. And also, really important, use your own language islands. This is much more effective at making you fluent than learning random stuff. And this is also the actual mechanism behind what people call thinking in the language, instead of translating. Because if you've only recognized a sentence, your brain has no pathway for producing it. So in conversation, you're forced to construct that sentence in real time. And often you end up thinking in your native language first. Doing enough active recall will solve this problem. You learn to think in the language. You learn to translate faster and faster, and better, and eventually you're not translating anymore, you're just thinking in the language. So how do you put all of this together? Well, here's a realistic daily structure you can use. First, you need to listen to the sentences every day. The more the better. Just use your dead time. And then, do at least 20 minutes of active recall every day. The combination of constant reviewing by listening and active recall with the same sentences will allow you to learn them really fast and actually use them in conversation. Now, here's a specific point almost every learner hits where you've learned quite a lot, you can say a bunch of things in the language, but you feel like you're not making progress anymore. This is the intermediate plateau. This happens to a lot of people. For example, millions of expats live abroad for years, understand the language pretty well, and they can speak the language, but not very well. This is the intermediate plateau. Comprehension keeps improving, maybe because you keep watching content or listening to it in the language, but your speaking skills freeze and they stay at the same level forever. And this starts happening when you get comfortable with the language. You stop trying to learn deliberately and you rely on comprehension and conversation. And of course, this does almost nothing to fix fossilized errors because you never get feedback and you're never forced to correct yourself, to produce the correct version. So how do you fix this? How do you overcome the intermediate plateau? Well, breaking through it means solving two problems. You need precision and volume. Unfortunately, improving your precision means doing lots and lots of active recall. You keep doing active recall over and over again with more and more sentences, and also with longer and more complex sentences until you get it right every time. It's as simple as that, although it's really not fun. But if you want to get to a C level, you need to do this. Because understanding a sentence and producing it correctly under pressure are different skills. And if you've never drilled production under pressure of complex, advanced sentences, you won't be able to do it in conversation. So if you want to improve your accuracy and make fewer mistakes, you need to do a lot more active recall. And the second thing you need is volume. Volume is what actually pushes you past the plateau, and it's the piece that almost nobody does enough of. And I'm not talking about more input. That's easy. Anyone can do that. No, I'm talking about more volume in speaking. Basically, to practice speaking the language a lot, all the time. You could do this with native speakers if you have access to them. And as long as you're also doing active recall, you will improve a lot. But the easier way of doing it on your own is with AI. This is how I recommend you do it. You go for a long walk every day and you open a voice conversation with AI and you talk and talk and talk. Not for 10 minutes a day, but for hours. Entirely in the target language, out loud, in real time, no script. You will probably make mistakes, but AI will give you a corrected transcript of all the things you said. And then, when you get home, you review the corrected versions of all the things you said. And tomorrow you try again. The goal is to get as much speaking practice as possible, every day. Of course, it's really important to review the transcripts. You go through every correction one by one, and then you try to talk about the same things again. You should also take the corrected transcripts and turn them into more language islands and review those as well. So your daily speaking practice helps you create more and more learning materials. Learning materials that are personalized. You combine this with active recall and more speaking practice. Freestyle with AI. This is the fastest and most efficient way to overcome the intermediate plateau and to get fluent. Yes, speaking to native speakers is great. If you are surrounded by native speakers, go ahead and talk to them all day, but don't skip the active recall. And most of you won't be surrounded by native speakers, so make sure you do a lot of speaking practice on your own. Alright, now let's talk about getting fluent fast. Let's fit all of this into a 3-month timeline. The first month you need to build your language islands and learn the basics. Lots of repetition with the basic sentences. Lots of listening, a lot of shadowing, and active recall. You can start small with the active recall and slowly increase the amounts you do per day. And at the end of the month, you should be able to have basic conversations. You won't be fully fluent, of course, but you will have a solid, growing set of language islands that are really useful and that you can already use in conversation. And your mouth and ears will be trained to recognize the sounds of the language and to reproduce them. Month 2, you keep building your language islands and you start doing a lot more active recall. Also, it's time to start doing unscripted speaking, AI conversations. This should become a real part of your routine. Every day go for a walk and talk to AI, an hour or 2 a day at least. It will be very difficult in the beginning, but the more you do it, the easier it'll get. And this will also give you a lot more language islands to learn. You do shadowing and active recall with those new language islands, and you keep trying to speak with AI every day. And by the end of month 2, you'll be way better at conversations. And month 3, you need to do pretty much the same thing, but just more of it. Because everything will start compounding, and you'll be able to speak a lot more when you do your conversation practice with AI. That will give you a lot more language islands to learn. You do shadowing and active recall with these new language islands. Then you try speaking again. And a lot of your language islands will be very similar to each other because we tend to talk about the same things over and over again. Everyone does this. And this is a good thing because it will give you a lot of different ways to say the things you normally say. The more ways you have to say something you normally say, the easier unscripted conversations will be. Just talk and talk and talk, and eventually you'll have everything you want to be able to talk about. Scripted, rehearsed, and memorized. And you'll be able to speak fluently. What stays constant across all 3 months is the loop. You build your materials, you drill them, you produce them out loud, you get feedback, you try again. We're repeating that loop using active recall with single sentences and also while speaking to AI and getting feedback. It's the exact same loop. And this is how you get fluent in any language in 3 months. You can start today, build your language islands and start practicing. Everything you need is in the links below.